are many times when people are called to do a task that they think they cannot do. At one time or another, we have all gone through these periods of self-doubt. Even in the Bible, there are characters that go through these periods of self-doubt when God has called them to do certain tasks. There have been characters that could not do what God has called them to do. There are times where I've even felt this doubt myself. When I overcame this doubt, God has always elevated me to the task at hand. When I have not gone through, He has made it clear I was wrong, and I usually regret it one way or another. I will use Moses, Gideon, and Esther as examples of people who have overcome these doubts and the impossible obstacles that have been placed in front of them. I will use Barak and Gomer as people who have failed at the task that seemed impossible before them. The first person that I will bring forth is Moses. Moses is my favorite character in the Bible. Most people know about how he successfully led his people out of Egypt. He gave plagues and eventually parted the Red Sea with God's help. What people do not know is the struggle that God went through to get Moses to do what he had called him to do. God initially called Moses to go to Egypt and bring his people out. Evidence of this can be found in Exodus chapter 3, verses 7 to 10, where it says, "Indeed, I have seen my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers. I am concerned about their suffering. I have also come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, to bring them out of the land, and to bring them into a spacious land flowing of milk and honey, home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jezreelites. And now the cry of Israel has reached me, and I have seen the ways the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go! I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people out of Egypt." Moses, of course, did not think he was worthy to become the great man he was destined to be. Moses was quite happy being a shepherd for his family. We've all felt this way that Moses would have felt. For the rest of Exodus chapter 3 and 4, Moses kept coming with excuse after excuse to declare he was unworthy of the task at hand. Even God can clearly show that He is with you. The task can still be extremely difficult. Eventually, of course, the challenge was overcome, even though he did not have the confidence to do it at first. With God's help, he overcame it. God showed him the miracles that he would perform for him and reaffirmed him when he went to speak to Pharaoh. God can do the same with us. The next person I want to use as an example is Gideon. Gideon, we see initially in Judges chapter 6. Gideon was a man that was called upon Israel when it was being oppressed by another country called Midian. Gideon was called upon God to lead his people out of oppression. Evidence of this can be found in Judges 6:12, where it says, "An angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, and he said, 'Mighty warrior.'" Before this time, Gideon did not think too highly of himself. As a matter of fact, he declared in Judges 6:15, where it says, "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied. "How can I lead Israel? I am the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least of my family." As you could see, he did not think highly of himself. After God said he was with him, after that, God said he was with him. Like Moses, Gideon wanted proof of this. God gave him the proof in verses 20 and 21, where it says, "The angel of God came to him and said, 'Take the uncleavened bread and place it on this rock and pour out the broth.' And Gideon did so. Then the angel touched the meat and the uncleavened bread with the tip of his staff that was in his hand. The fire flared up in the rock, consuming the meat and bread. Just after that, the angel of the Lord disappeared." Gideon did not need any more convincing after that. Eventually, he gathered up a large force and then significantly downsized it. It became only 300 people of the 32,000 that were originally there. This was a force that was able to wipe out the opposing army. Just imagine in the present day using 300 fishing boats to take out the entire United States Army and Navy. This was the task that Gideon had. In this case, God used Gideon to show his awesome power. This is another case where God made the impossible possible. There are female characters in the Bible that could do miraculous things despite the odds against them. Esther was one of these female characters. She had two impossible tasks. The first was to become queen. She was destined to become queen with King Xerxes in the time of Persian rule in chapter 2. There were many beauty treatments that I'm sure were very painful, and a night with a king that I am sure was not the most pleasant. Esther could not reveal that she was an Israelite at the time. She was also competing with many other women. She did succeed in becoming queen, despite the odds. God made the impossible possible in this way. Eventually, she needed to use her influence to save the people of Israel from extinction. In this case, the call came from Mordecai. He was her adopted father at the time. When Mordecai came to ask her to save the people from extinction, Esther was understandably afraid. The reason for this can be found in Esther chapter 4 verses 11, where it says, "All the king's officials and the people of royal provinces know that for any man or woman that approaches the king without being summoned, the king has one law: that they should be put to death unless the king extends the gold scepter and spares their lives. But 30 days had passed since I've been called to the king." Mordecai responded by saying, "The time is now. In my country we have a saying, put up or shut up." It was time for her to put up. Because she did this, the people of Israel were saved. Esther let God take care of the impossible. In this case, it was King Xerxes. Now I want to show you a case where people who have seen the obstacle in front of them and did not realize God is greater than any obstacle. In Judges chapter 4, there was a leader in the Israelite army. His name was Barak. He did not have the level of faith when he was called to lead the army against Israel's oppressors. During this time, there was a prophet named Deborah, who was leading Israel at the time. She was the one that called Barak to defeat the people who were oppressing Israel. Sometimes all we need is the support of God to go into battle. This was one of those times for Barak. Barak insisted upon Deborah joining him because of his lack of faith. Because of this insistence, he did all the work to defeat the oppressors while Deborah got all the glory. If I were in that position of after the battle, I would want the glory for myself. In this case, it was not meant to be. God had to come up with a different plan because of Barak. This is why he did not get the glory he had a right to. Ladies are not above this. The next story I want to share with you is of a woman named Gomer. This woman had a task. In people's eyes, this was considered a small task. She was formerly a prostitute. She was the wife of Hosea. Even though God was using her as an example, she did not need to be used as an example. In Hosea chapter 2, she had the opportunity to make what seemed impossible at the time possible. She could have walked away from her adulterous life. Proof of this can be found in Hosea chapter 2, verses 2 and 3, where it says, "Rebuke your mother, rebuke her, for she is not my wife, and I am not her husband. Let her remove her adulterous look from her face, and her unfaithfulness between her breasts. Otherwise I will strip her naked, and make her bare as the day she was born." God in this part was trying to make a point to the people of Israel, but Gomer did not need to be a part of it. If she tried to do the impossible with help of her husband and friends that were around her, I'm sure that there would have been a different story written in this section of the Bible. In chapter 2, she could not, so she was made an example of. Eventually, Hosea reconciled, and in the story, went on towards Israel. This is a case where it could have been different. There are people that have clear indications that God is telling them to do a task that seemed impossible. How does the word come to us in our everyday life? God will often meet us where we are at. For Moses, God came to him in the form of a burning bush. This wasn't his normal routine. For Gideon, it was an angel during his routine. Esther, it was another God-fearing man named Mordecai. Barak was summoned by a leader. There are times where that does happen to us. For Gomer, it was her husband. In my case, God gave me the inspiration and other signs. There are people who have not profiled, but words came to them differently. These people include Joseph from Genesis and Josiah. Joseph had dreams, and Josiah had a random book that was found. In my personal experience, God has come to me both in dreams and going through random parts of the Bible. He has also come to me in forms of two random people where I was at. The point is that anyone can connect with God. He will tell you what he wants done when you connect with the Lord. When God called upon me, there were times where I have done exactly what God has required me to do, and other times where I have not. An impossible task can be, in some cases, where you need to get help to move a heavy object. An example of this is a piece of machinery or a heavy piece of furniture. For me, it was. There are times where I've had a lot of pride in being able to move something that is heavy. This was between 75 and 100 kilograms. Even though in some cases it was easier to move an object with two people, I insisted upon trying to do it by myself. In this case, the Word of God came from other people trying to give me a hand. I refused because I was stubborn. And when I did this, I injured myself a few times. I am fine now, but there were times where I was not. God was for sure trying to get me help. Mentally, if you have a lot of pride in your strength, it can be an impossible task. There is another way that God challenged me. There are times where I've had trouble coming up with words to explain myself. I have had the knowledge, but the words just did not come out. I was extremely shy 10 years. 10 years ago, I would have not been willing to speak in front of you. I had a serious fear of public speaking. I still partially do. There are times I still get nervous when I preach. My faith gives me the courage to speak to you. In Matthew 7:7, it says, "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you." What the Bible is getting at here is if you need the courage to do the impossible, it will be given to you. If you need a hand with anything, it will be given to you. There are times where you will be unsure if this is the right word of God. God is fine with that. There are warnings throughout the Bible that will tell you that there are good plans and bad plans. In Matthew 7:16 it says, "By the fruit of the Spirit you will recognize them." What it is getting at here is if someone gives you advice, look into where the advice is coming from. If a person is giving you advice to gain more wealth but is financially very poor, it is probably not very good advice. This is an example of how good and bad spirits can work. If we're reflecting the Bible characters that I have profiled, they all got confirmation from people they trusted. Even the ones that did not complete the task in front of them still got the confirmation. Once God tells you to do something, just do it. God will often take care of the impossible. All you need to do is be willing to do it. I would like to thank you for letting me share with you my words of wisdom.
So the stammer that you have, right? Were you teased in school?
I was.
Yeah.
I was judged harshly.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel now about it?
I feel if I'm going to be judged, let it be by God.
Right.
Like, a lot of people, when you speak, they're not there to judge you. They're not there to judge you.
Right.
They're there to learn from you.
Right. So what advice would you give to anybody who might be having some kind of a stammer that, like Moses said, I'm not a good speaker. What advice would you give to people who may be in the same situation?
Yeah, just if you are going to speak on a subject and you stammer, do the research. Do the research and have faith in that research.
Right.
Like, in Matthew 7:7 it says, if you ask, it will be given to you.
Right.
Ask.
And God speaks through people as well, regardless of the stammer or the mannerisms or, regardless of their race or color or whatever. I think God speaks through people regardless,
One thing I've learned is God has infinite plans for infinite people. And some of those plans, like if he wants you to speak on something, well, that's part of his plan for you to show other people the knowledge that you possess, and to say, I'm going to get over this problem.
Right.
I'm going to get over this fear.
Exactly. So, is there any particular instances that you experienced that somebody gave you a hard time about it?
Classroom presentations.
Oh, yeah.
In high school, classroom presentations, and when I stuttered it, I felt like I was laughed at.
Right.
And that is why I'm shy, and I just I coasted along a lot easier in school if I just said nothing.
Right. And now you use your words powerfully. I mean, it's a given that you're on YouTube and people see you all around the world. But also your volunteer positions in the past with, what was it again?
Salvation Army Hope Line.
The Salvation Army Hope Line, right. And where people would call in and...
and there are churches I've gone to where I've actually public speaked.
Right.
And 10 years ago, I would have been like, nope, not going to happen. Not going to happen because I was afraid, of the task at hand. I felt the task at hand was bigger than what I can do.
And again, with the Salvation Army Hope Line, you've literally saved lives just by answering the phone.
Yeah.
And I think that is a big deal. Is there anything else that you want to tell people or encourage people? Because God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind.
Yeah, no, He's given you, in the Bible there is a shield. One of the if you put on the armor of God, one of it is a shield. You can stand behind that shield and push forward, and God will protect you no matter what. Awesome.
Well, thank you again, Steve, for speaking on Godwin's TV, and we hope to hear from you again soon. Thank you so much. Okay, peace, love, everybody, and we will see you on the next